There we go. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. And today we have another great guest. And let me introduce him right now. This is Paul Garcia, who got started in martial arts in 1979 at the age of 11. He attended a traditional martial arts school that put a heavy emphasis on competition. Paul always enjoyed competing, and by the age of 18, was selected to be the middleweight fighter for the National Karate Team. For a national karate team. Eventually, this team grew into the John Paul Mitchell National Karate Team. He competed with JPM from 1991 to 1994. In 1990, Paul opened his first school in Rhode Island. Young and new to the business, he was fortunate enough to become friends with some of the best and brightest martial arts professionals in the country. Under their mentorship, his school grew to one of the largest schools in New England when he was just 24. After selling that school, Mr. Garcia moved to Florida and became a senior consultant and eventually the vice president at United Professionals. United Professionals was a martial arts consulting firm with over 300 clients between the United States and Canada. Alongside his friend and mentor, Greg Silva, he had the great honor to coach and be consultant to so many young professionals who are today running some of the largest schools and franchises in America. In 1999, Paul moved back to Massachusetts and opened America's Best Defense. Today, that school has grown into 4 schools, teaching over 2,000 students and employing over 14 staff members. In 2023, he will celebrate their 24th year anniversary. Awesome story. Can't wait to hear more about it. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's quite a history. I'm looking forward to, as I said before, Mr. Silva recommended you very highly and wanted to make sure that everybody got to hear your story. And so I'm excited to be a part of that and helping to share that story. And what I like to start every show with is, just tell us a little bit more about, the background, maybe a little further back, and we'll get more into detail. And by the way, for those of you that are watching here live, if you have any questions and you want to interact with us throughout our chat today, please just post those in the comments. So, Paul, I'll turn it to you just to get us started.
Yeah, we were talking about my childhood. I come from a military family, so my dad served in the Marine Corps, uncles served in the Marine Corps, Navy. So the discipline and the structure of martial arts really wasn't much different than home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so a high level of respect taught in my house, and that was for sure my father's hierarchy value is respect. You're going to respect women. You're going to respect your mother. At that time, as he got older, he had a hard time adjusting to today's times. But he was full-blooded Mexican. Actually came to this country because he served in the military, and my mom was full-blooded Portuguese. So we had good food in the house.
Love it.
Had the best of both worlds. Yes.
Well, tell me more about, growing up in a military family. Did you guys have to move around a lot, or were you kind of stationed in one spot for long periods of time?
I'm the youngest of all the children. So by the time I came along, they had put roots down in Rhode Island. And, looking back, being from that type of culture, probably, when you grow older, you start to remember that your parents really didn't know what they were talking about, right? You argue with them when you're a teenager, but I think my work ethic for sure came from my work ethic and believability. For sure came from my parents. My father had a very, very, very strong work ethic, and I always say, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right, and you're not going to quit. He was a big, obviously being in the military, big believer in not quitting. When I first joined martial arts, at the very get-go, I was told you're not going to quit. So in their mind, you're staying until you get a black belt.
Wow.
It's only 11, but that's the way it is. You just and I wanted to. There was many times that I would argue with them, and it's not in his vocabulary. We're not quitters. You do it to the end. So it also made you think through your decisions, because if you were going to do something, you knew there was going to be expectation to stick to it. And then my mom being my mom, I'm the only boy out of the family. So she's always, the encourager. You can do it. You can do it. You can be great. So that balance, I think, served me really well in the house.
Yeah. Balance of the support. And you're not going to quit. Not going to quit, but you have the support. That's awesome. It's funny. I have I have young adult children now, 18 and 21. And it's so funny because when you were saying, as you're a kid, and I know as a teenager, man, I thought I knew everything and argued with my parents and, I know better, you don't know what you're talking about, right? You must have said that a million times. And then as you become an adult, you do realize that kind of like, sometimes maybe my parents were making it up as they go along, because I know that as a parent myself, there's some things we kind of make it up as we're going along, and we learn. There's no playbook on how to be a parent, right? Because every child's different and every situation is different. But that respect level, I think, is what I'm getting at, is how important that is, that we learn to respect our parents. We learn to respect our mentors, the people that are coaching us, and really put some trust into them, because that's what it comes down to, is we're putting our trust into them, knowing that they have our best interest at heart, knowing that they want the best for us. So, tell me more about living in Rhode Island. What was it like growing up in Rhode Island?
It's awesome. I love Rhode Island. If you like the water, if you like boating, that's certainly. I truthfully, I lived in Florida for a time. I've traveled all over the country being a consultant. But truthfully, in the summer, in the spring, in the summer, even in the fall, in my opinion, there's no better place to live. It's just we have great food. My wife and I are foodies, so we have great restaurants, and just being on the coast and that type of rugged coastline. It's beautiful. And I'm sure, the listeners, everyone feels the same about where they live. But I really enjoyed that. I'm not, as I get older and more mature, I'm not quite a fan of the winter anymore. I do like it when it snows, but then sometimes enough is enough. But that's all right, because my wife and I usually in the winter will travel down to Florida and spend some time down there. So
there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, I wouldn't know what snow or winter or anything like that is, because being here from Southern California my whole life, it's bright and sunny and near the beach, and so as you were talking about, being near the water and having the nice weather, I'm thinking sounds a lot like California. But you said, everybody listening is going, well, I kind of like where I live, and that's
Sure.
why we are where we are. But like you said, you've been able to travel all over the country and visit other places, and you always find that place that just becomes home. And so you guys, you did move to Florida, but now you're in Massachusetts, correct?
Yeah, I was a consultant, as you said earlier, with Master Silva for United Professionals, and my kids were younger when we were down there. And really, the thing I had going for me was my career, but I kind of felt bad for the kids. We didn't have any family down there. And truthfully, I just missed running a school. I enjoyed consulting. I enjoyed coaching people, but I really missed the being involved. I love teaching. I love what martial arts can do for people. And I just kind of missed that. So the factors of my kids not being around their family, me missing running a school, that drove me back to Rhode Island to open up the schools.
Cool. So let's talk about how you got involved in martial arts. You were 11 years old. You started martial arts, and you said from the beginning, Dad was like, you're getting your black belt. You're gonna be committed. You're gonna stick to this thing. But what was the initial? Obviously, this was a parental decision. Did you have an interest that kind of led to you wanting to do it?
Yeah, you said it exactly right. My parents were big believers that we had to participate in some activity. So they wanted us to choose at least one. So I did a lot of seasonal sports, but it came around summertime when there was no seasonal sports, and it was actually my mother's idea. She came to me and she says, well, what are you going to do for the summer? What about karate? And I didn't know anybody that did karate, but I was really intrigued by the idea. And I was like, that'd be awesome. So originally, we started, I was 11. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with, like you said, I was a part of a sport karate school, and I really just enjoyed competition. I like the fact that it was me versus you, and it's a team sport, so to speak, but it's not. This is totally up to me to get this done, and I just enjoyed it. I had the body for it. I'm 6'1". So even at the age of, 13, I was already approaching 6 feet tall. So I was very tall, very lanky, and that sport karate, that served me well. I have long legs, so that served me well. And I started to flourish in it. When I was a kid, I was the top rated underbelt fighter in New England. So I started to experience success, and, that feels good. So you just want to keep going. And I just had the right people in my life. All the parts kind of fell together. I had a great instructor. And the competition in New England, back in those days, we had Billy Blanks, Mafia Holloway, Pedro Xavier. The list just goes on and on and on. Christine Bannon. We I got to watch the best in the country fighting all the time, and I would just watch and learn. I can't even remember if I would film them. I don't even know if we had video back then.
You might have had that big old camcorder sitting on your shoulder.
Yeah, I just probably couldn't afford it. But, I used to study those guys. I used to sit there and literally just take notes. And so I had good mentors, even in fighting coming up, and just a real desire for it. It was fun.
Yeah. Tell me more about your first instructor, the school, the culture. It was more of a competition school, but what system, style? Give us some of those details.
Yeah. His name was Ernie Tibiage, and I'll tell you the greatest impact that he had on my life was he was very much into the philosophies of martial arts. So in class, this is going back to the early 80s. In class, before a message of the week was even coined or a life skill was even coined, he would do that. He would end class with some type of message, some philosophical message that how you should be learning. He turned me on to this book called Zen in the Martial Arts. And that book in itself talks about, I think it's Joe Himes, basically all these masters that he's trained with and the things that they've taught him, life skills from training with them. That was him. He really brought that into the dojo. And that's when I really started to get the idea that this is a lifestyle. It's not just a sport. So even though we were a competition school, it became more than that. He was very clear that this is a lifestyle. It's something that you become, not necessarily something that you do. And, he also served in the Marine Corps. So I'm sure, if you talk to any Marine, they don't say they did the Marines. They say they are a Marine. That's just who they are for the rest of their life. And he put some of that into the school. You are a martial artist. It's not something you do. This is who you are. Yeah. And as a young kid hearing that stuff, it was very helpful, especially being a preteen and then eventually a teenager. And he was awesome. I remember when I'd have difficulty with my parents, he called me one day at work. You know what I mean? And I get this call like this is Ernie Tibiage. I'm like, what? And he called me just to check, because I was having arguments with my parents. And he just, he was that kind of guy, really cared for his students. Laid the groundwork for me on what a good instructor really is.
Now, what's the lineage of your instructor? What was this, a Japanese style, Chinese style, Korean?
It was a Korean style that kind of morphed into more of an American karate system. His instructor was Danny Zarbo, who way back in the day was a fighter for the Rhode Island Thunderbolts. This is like one of the first national kickboxing teams in the country. Danny was a highly respected fighter. That was his instructor. So, we came from a whole lineage of fighters. Which again, if you're training with Olympic swimmers, even though you don't go to Olympics, you learn to swim real fast.
That's right. Well, so it sounds like, the life skill lessons, the character education, the philosophies really had an impact on you. The competition drew you in and kept you, really excited to keep training. That cycle of success, right? You build a skill and you get better and you feel good about it. So you train a little harder, your skills get better. You feel, and that just like constantly,
So true.
What was there ever a time, I'm sure, like all people where that kind of faded a little bit, or maybe as you were a teenager, other things in life started kind of creeping in and started pulling at you a little bit?
Yeah, man, girls.
Why did I know that was going to be an answer?
Yeah, and he had to rein us in. Me and my buddy that we trained with together, man. Him and I, we just the girls, the cars, all of it. We got our license. We had muscle cars. We were his top students, so we had to some degree popularity. And you learn real fast how to handle in very simple terms success. That don't let it go to your head, because he was good at that. He'd tell you straight out, it's going to your head. He used to use the word cocky. You get way too cocky. You're going to be humbled. And he was right. Sometimes you go into a fight and you started reading your own press, and you'd get it handed to you.
Right.
Right. And that would just knock you down. That would knock you down.
Yep. Sure. I definitely can understand those experiences, because I was earning my black belt at about 17 years old, and so those teen years were very I could have gone one way or the other, and thank God for the instructors that I had that kind of straightened me out and, kept my ego in check, because every now and again, you'd get reminded, yeah, you might be good, but you ain't that good yet.
Yeah. And even my coach on the John Paul Mitchell, Don Rodriguez. I mean, honestly, I owe so much of my success to him too. There's just been so many great mentors in my life, but he was a guy. He epitomized, the old Bible. I don't want to say quote verse, truth and love. I mean, Donnie would tell you the truth, but he did it. You knew that he cared about you, and sometimes it would be tough truth. It'd be hard to swallow. It would come out him yelling at you, but really he wasn't yelling at you. He was yelling for you, really.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew he cared. And he was also a tremendous person in my life that just really kind of kept me walking in the right path and keeping my eyes on developing my potential and not getting sidetracked with the hype,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how did you make the transition, from being a student and into being an instructor, right? So you're a student, you're a competitor, but at some point you bridge that gap where you become the instructor and you become the coach. And I know that sometimes lasts a little while, but how did that transition take place for you?
Tell you what, that's such a good question, and there's such a valuable life lesson in here that my father had taught me over and over again, but I lived it, and I can tell you to be true. That responsibility is good for people. I became a father at a very young age. So now I have responsibilities. I have a wife. Like I said, I be coming from a traditional family. When that kind of thing happens, at least the family I grew up with, there's no question you're getting married. You know what I mean? They are now your responsibility, especially with him. He's a big responsibility guy. So there's no question you're now getting married and you are now going to take care of your responsibilities. So I was forced to go get a full-time job at a very young age and take care of a family. And, here I am from this fighter going in the national circuit, winning tournaments and trophies and people asking you for your autograph, to coming home working 40 to 50 hours a week to support a family. And I just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this. And I started seeing people that I knew really well, and I could drop a ton of names that were competitors, but also running successful schools. And I would have conversations with them at tournaments. How do you, the school that we came from, or I came from, was a small school. We had like 60 students. So when I'm hearing these people saying that they got 300-400 students, this is going back into the late 80s, early 90s. I'm like, what? How is that even possible?
Right.
And they would invite me to their schools, and I would watch their schools, and I just became just absolutely inspired. And then on top of that, these friends were so awesome. They said, well, we'll just show you how to do it. I mean, what do you mean? We'll show you how to do this. So it was with that I decided, I'm like, I'm going to run a martial arts school. And for a long time, I had to do both. I opened the school, but I still had to work because the school didn't produce enough money for me to go full time. But that was the beginning. Really, Tony Robbins says success is either inspiration or desperation. I think for me, it was both. I had inspiration where I wasn't really enjoying the work that I was doing. I never went to college. So, I was just doing grunt work. And at the same time, on weekends, I'd travel in planes and go to different parts of the country and fight on stage and meet these people that are really super successful. And that was my inspiration. And that, to me, that just kind of pointed in a particular direction. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And there's no way I can fail because these people are going to show me how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you got to put a lot of trust in your mentors. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Now, did you have experience, teaching in the school that you grew up in? Did you have any business experience? Did you have any of the tools that we would probably consult people before going and opening a school now? And I think I know the answer, but I'm asking this so that you can talk about it.
The only teaching experience I had was when our instructor would go on vacation. He would take his high, like the old days, he'd take his high-ranking black belts and say, okay, I'm leaving. You're teaching Monday. You're teaching Tuesday. You know what I mean? That was it. There was no ongoing teaching experience that I had. And I had zero business experience. All I literally had was these people say, come to my school and we'll show you how to do it. And that was it. That was the beginning. One of the biggest, this guy, Cheech Luzzy, who's now retired, I mean, he was on the karate team that I was on, and that's literally how it happened. He would just have me come to his school. I would watch classes. He would explain things to me, and that's how it started. And I would go back and I'd implement it, and sure enough, the school would grow. And then I'd go back, learn a little bit more, implement it, and before you knew it, I had 200 students, and I knew exactly how many students I needed to quit my job. So it was like, counting every single student, and it was a hack because I used to work third shift so that I could teach. So I'd watch my daughter during the day, and then I would teach at night, and then go work. And literally, I was probably surviving on about 4 hours of sleep a day. But you're young, you're young, so you're doing it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's so funny that you say that. You knew exactly how many students you needed to quit that job. I remember as a young school owner, I would kind of base every decision or everything that I was going to buy, or kind of take that next step up, whether it's buying a new car, or thinking about buying a house, or moving, renting a better apartment, whatever. I just need 5 more students to do that. I just need 10 more students. That was the gauge. It was just that this many students will get me to there. When I was about 19 when I started my my program at a park and rec program, and then built from there. That's how my instructor did it. That's how I started martial arts. So it was really all I knew was going based off of what was shown to me and what was proven to work. And so, but opening my first school and leasing that first warehouse that a student's parent, sorry, helped me find this place, brokered the whole deal. I had like no savings, nothing. I didn't go to college, I mean, a little community college, but not a whole lot. Right. And it was all general ed. So like, I'm really going in with passion. I love martial arts. I love what it does for people. I love teaching. My family was in construction, did not want to do that. I saw all these other things, did not want to do that, but this was my path. Right. But it was like, I made every mistake that could have been made. Everything was trial and error. Everything was, well, let's see if this works, and then I would have people tell me how things should be, or here's how you do it. Nah, that won't work. That kind of mentality. Right. So tell me about your experience opening up that first school.
Well, like I said, it was just like feeling around in the dark a lot of the times. Yeah. I'm just on pure faith, going down there, learning stuff, and implementing it. And then it got to a point where he had recommended that I join, if you remember way back in the day, EFC. Mm-hmm. And I joined EFC, and I went to their first convention, and that's when I met some really powerful movers and shakers who both just happened to be huge sport karate fans. So I'm walking in, like these guys are like, they're stars, Hollywood stars, and they're looking at me like, oh my goodness, So it just allowed me, my success as a point fighter allowed me access to these people. Mm-hmm. And again, they just started teaching me. And you mentioned earlier, Master Silva being one of probably the most influential mentors in my life, who I went to his school. And when I first went to his school, he had like 600 something students. And obviously we're friends to this day. So I saw that school grow from 600 to over 1,000 to over 1,200. I eventually went to work for him, but he was the guy that just had a huge influence on my teaching style, the expectations I put on my life. He introduced me to personal development, which now I'm addicted to. So it just, that meeting, that one decision of joining that company and meeting these people, and then again, just having the desire, just, hey, can you show me? Can you teach me? Mm-hmm. Keep the cup half empty all the time, and just trying to absorb and learn. And I'd go down there and teach sparring seminars. And while I was there, he would just pretty much open everything up to me. And then sure enough, the school would grow more, and before you know it, we're running one of the largest, if not the largest school in New England at the time. And I was young. I was like 20-something years old. Right. More money in my safe than my parents probably ever made in a year. What I mean? Yeah. But the lessons of the past come back, right? When you got less success, be careful. Be careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that, because I'm sure we've had, some similar stories when we start hitting that kind of success, and then we start living the life and forget how to take care of ourselves, and how to, do the right thing and make the better decisions. But how did you at a young age? I mean, you're young 20s, right? I mean, I'm remembering and thinking that my ego would be so big. How did you keep that in check? And maybe this kind of goes back to what we were talking about as a fighter, right? You had some people that you were good, but you weren't that good, right? And now you're surrounded by these people where you're good, but you got all these other people. How'd you keep your ego in check at that time when you started seeing that level of success?
I think it was helpful that my mentors were older. So while I was in my young 20s, they were in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So they're and I think that helped a lot because they were able to keep you like, I know what you're doing. I know the path that you're going down. You need to be careful, and just hearing that type of advice. And also, unfortunately, examples. There were a lot of examples in our industry where we saw very successful schools fail because of, I mean, quite honestly, character issues. So that was a warning, and that would always get pointed out to me. Like, you don't want to be one of these people. And so I again, just them in my life, mature people that were able to point you and direct you and also pull you aside and give you a tongue lashing if you needed it because you were starting to act like an idiot. And it was helpful. It was very helpful. One of the things I try to encourage people today is I just don't think that this generation asks enough questions. I really don't. And I think that the reason that they're doing that is because everyone's trying to be a somebody, and we're trying to project something. And unfortunately, when you act like you got it all together, you don't ask questions.
Right.
Our generation, we were told to role model. That was the biggest thing. Even Tony Robbins talks about that. Find a role model, find a role model, find a role model. It's so easy. You literally just find someone who's getting the results that you want and you do what they do.
Right.
I think one of the biggest things I've learned from Tony Robbins was when he said success doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what age you are. It doesn't care what color you are. It doesn't care where you grew up. If you do what they do, you get the same results. I'm a living example of that. You know what I mean? I didn't invent any of this. I just listened and okay, and went back and did it.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Well, I think you're right when you say that, this newer generation doesn't ask questions. It's kind of the opposite. They just kind of see what's going on and just kind of roll with it, right? Like we just all keep going this way. And when I remember when I was growing up, my parents, they weren't so mainstream in a lot of things, right? And what I mean by that is that they would question everything, and they would kind of they would create their own path sometimes, and but we learn to ask why, right? Why do you do that? And how do you do that? And I'm this is why I love the podcast. I love to ask a lot of questions. I love to just kind of pick your brain and learn about your life, learn where you came from, right? And but I see a lot of people, it's easy because social media, right? Social media just puts out this, there's no reason to ask questions because, well, they just told me all of this and they just go with that. You follow, right? I mean, and so I think that that is a good point, that we should be asking questions and trying to learn more and not being above learning. Sometimes in our industry, again, talk about ego, right? The martial arts industry, I think, still to this day, and probably always will be, because we teach such confidence, to bring out the confidence in people. But that ego says, oh, I got this, I'm good, right? And not, how do I get to that next level? Although when you start at white belt, what do? You try to get to yellow belt. When you're a yellow belt, what are you trying to do? Try to get to the next. And what do? You ask your instructor questions. You watch the people above you that have done it. And if you want to get there, you gotta do the work, right? It's not going to you're not going to wake up one day and have a black belt on, right? Well, you're not going to wake up one day and have the most successful school. You're not going to wake up one day and just be a world champion. It's just not going to happen, right?
One of my favorite quotes is by John Maxwell, and it's so true, because you and I both teach, and we teach kids. And if you ask a kid, hey, how old are you? Right, they're always going to go, well, I'm 6 years old and 5 months and 4 days, and right. always trying to get to tell you how quickly they're going to be the next number 7. You know, if they're 7, they're going to tell you how. And he says that we should have that eagerness to want to grow. Like, just constantly, we should have a desire to just want to grow. I just want to get better. I just want to improve. I want to get to the next, and I think that's if someone was to follow that, where they just have that quest of just constant growth and improvement, it's going to take them places.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Listen, I just happen to have this right here. This is my daily reader. I brought it in with me today because I normally read first thing, but I'm going to read this right after our interview. But John Maxwell, one of my favorite authors, so reading a couple of his books right now, actually. But you talked earlier, about personal growth. You were turned on to personal growth by your mentors, and I wish that I would have had people turn me on to this at a much younger age, in my 20s or even in my 30s. I don't think it was even until I was in my 40s that I even thought about, personal growth in the way that we kind of see it now, like really taking steps to read more, be involved with masterminds, networking, so who really turned you on to this, and what was like your first step? What was the first thing?
A funny story for you. It's the last day that I'm down visiting Master Silva, and I can literally remember this like it was yesterday. And his office was in the left-hand corner, and I'm walking out the lobby, and I turn to him, I go, okay, just break it down for me. Give me the one thing. You're young. Give me the one thing. And what do I need to do to be successful? He walks back in his office and he pulls out this box. He says, order these tapes. And the tapes are Personal Power by Tony Robbins. So I go, okay. And, again, going back to my childhood, being in a military family, what do you kind of taught to do? You just take orders. I think that's part of where my mentoring comes from, is that I'm good at taking orders. You know what I mean? If you say do this, yes, sir. Okay, I'm going to do that. So he said, get these tapes. So I did. And, changed my life. And the reason why it changed my life is I started to realize that I had a conflict of values when I was running my school. And the tapes, you realize that. The conflict of values was I was a fighter and I was very well known in the country. So naturally, guess what? I want my students to represent me. And, you're going to teach a certain way because in your mind, your student's a reflection of you. It's really about you. And when he did the I forget what he called it, where you kind of project into the future. It's based on the Disney Christmas Carol. He called it something method, anyways. And I started to realize that this current behavior, where was it going to take me 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What was my life going to be like? That was really an eye opener. And I started to realize that I was teaching for the wrong reasons. That really I was teaching more for me than I was for my students in my community. And once I came to that realization, things rapidly changed. And that was it. Then I became like just hungry for personal development. Read all his books. Some of his books I read twice. Then I got into Zig Ziglar, read his books and listened to his audios. And it really hasn't stopped. Became insatiable with just wanting to learn more. That all people and their experience and their education could actually be mine by just listening to them or reading. To me, that just blew my mind. That just became helpful.
Well, so let's talk more about that. Your conflict of values. You were talking about how, you were teaching for you. You were teaching so that your students would represent you well, and that your school represented you.
Yeah.
When did it become, or I should say, how did you make the change to make it? What was the big switch? I know how you got there because you just explained that, but like, what were the changes that you made? What were the tweaks?
I mean, honestly, I don't want to use the word vicious, but if you were going to train at my school, then you had to be serious, and I wasn't going to tolerate if you were just dabbling. We'd have conversations that if you're not going to be consistent with your training, this probably isn't the school for you, because really the honest to God motive was, it was me. If you're going to train at my school, you reflect me. So you're going to be good. And we were what we called back then trimming the fat. If you weren't talented, but the conflict came from that being a motive to the fact that I also wanted to be successful. I saw the way these people were living, and I was attracted to it. And it's not like a sellout thing. I wanted that. I wanted that for me and my wife and my daughter. I wanted that lifestyle. So how are you going to get that lifestyle when you teach them like this? You know what I
Right.
mean? It
Right.
just, and then it wasn't necessarily the change. It just became once that became obvious to me, I started to see what was already there, but I just never saw it before, which was how these people taught. When I went to Master Silva School, you'd walk into his basic class and the kids, everyone looks like they got two left feet. And you're like, I don't know if I really want to teach like this, if this is what it takes to be successful. But then you go to his black belt class and, he's got state champions in there and the kids are amazing. He's got this killer demo team. I'm like, how did we get from that to that? And he used to say all the time, he goes, they're not going anywhere. You got time. You got time.
Right.
His whole philosophy was we develop them first from the inside, then the out. So it's about, which is obvious today, but back then it was all groundbreaking stuff. You first develop the mentality, their love of the art. You develop their confidence, their self-esteem. Develop that first, and then they're in a position where now you can start honing that physical skill. They're ready for the work. They want the work. Ready for it. And it's just having that method. Once I learned that, that's when, again, things started to change. You're still going to, if they're testing for a black belt, they're going to test for a black belt, and they're going to earn this black belt. We're not taking that away. It's just that I'm not getting them ready for that in day one.
Right.
I'm going to take some time and get them to fall in love with it first.
Well, and even at black belt, I can remember, again, as a young instructor, I had the same focus. My focus was, if my students, for lack of a better term, if my students suck, right, I suck. So my students better be really good to make me look really good. So like every detail was important. But what I was missing, I was so focused on the physical, that those external values, right? What everybody sees, and not focusing on, like what you said, the development of each individual, right? And how to build them up to get there, right? And that's exactly what you described is building them up to give them the confidence, to teach them the work ethic, to show them the way. And even like I look at black belt now so differently than I looked at black belt. Like to me, black belt was the end all, like, because back then, if you got a black belt, like that was kind of the end. It's like, cool, got my black belt, moving on, right? You didn't have black belts that continued their training and continue their development. Now I look at black belt as kind of a new white belt, just like a second degree white belt, like where you get to start over now and really put in the work. And so that development for me changed as well, because I was so focused on having the best students, the best looking students, because I was afraid of how it made me look, instead of focusing more on how they feel and how I give them the ability to get there, to give them all the tools to be the best version of themselves, to be the best that they could be, not necessarily, trying to compare them to each other necessarily.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I was going through. And I'm sure a lot of people listening go through that same thing.
Yeah.
They do. If they don't do it with their students, they do it with their kids, right? Somehow we bring it back to ourselves, I remember one time reading something from Zig Ziglar saying that this is back in the 70s, that 300 out of the top 500 CEOs in America had military experience. And his point was, you could see why they were successful, because in the military, what do you learn? You learn perseverance, you learn how to not quit, you learn focus, you learn determination. And they brought that into the workplace. And I remember reading that going, that's martial arts. Like our kids should be the best kids in school. Our kids should be the best kids in the community, because this is what martial arts teaches. It teaches respect. It teaches treat people with dignity. It teaches courtesy. It teaches focus. It teaches perseverance. So they should be the best humans in the community if we're doing our job right. That's what got me really excited about martial arts, seeing how we could be beneficial to the communities that we're in.
Well, and if you go back and listen to that list of all the things you said, not one of them was the highest kick, the flashiest form, all these attributes that you're talking about are things that they could use on and off of the mat. And that's something for the longest time we were so focused on what was happening inside the school. And then when they left the school, it was kind of like, well, I mean, hopefully they're tough, right? Like that was kind of the focus. Now it's like we really focus in on developing their character and teaching them to be leaders, especially now more than ever. Our students should be learning how to stand up for what they believe in, how to lead by example,
Right.
how to be able to stand up to peer pressure and all the challenges they have going on. What we teach them in the school definitely needs to be able to go outside the school.
There's such a wonderful. I was at a seminar recently, and Dave Kovar said something that was just blew my mind. He said that he was in Japan. It was the first time he'd ever been to Japan, and he said that he was struck by the fact that in Japan there's no public trash cans. And he said the reason, when he asked his instructor, why is that? He said, because you are taught to take care of yourself. It's your trash. You take it. Okay. It's your trash. You take it home. You throw it away.
Right.
I'm going to give you the dichotomy of that. I'm with my wife, and my wife is, she loves animals. She loves earth. And she saw someone throw trash while walking. And she just literally said, you should pick up your trash. And the lady turned to my wife and swore at her. Now, there's the difference. You're in Japan, you're taught a culture of respect, not only respect for yourself, but your fellow human, and you're taught to respect earth. Like, imagine if everyone lived that way. Can you imagine? So, I mean, we have a culture in the martial arts that teaches something that can teach people to be better people, and as a result, better communities.
Yes.
I think it's so powerful, and I think it's so necessary, that this become our mission.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I love it. And I love Dave Kovar, by the way. He's such an amazing martial artist and an example for all of us in what he does. Just I could listen to him teach and watch him train all the time.
Any day with him is a good day.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, so let's talk about becoming a consultant. So you've had this success as a competitor, and then you've had success now as a school owner and as an instructor. And this is kind of a natural progression for a lot of us, right? We love martial arts and we love what it did for us. So now we become a teacher. Now we teach martial arts and we love martial arts. So we have a school and we teach other people how to teach martial arts, and we have our instructor team. Well, now we love what our school does, what it offers our students, what it offers our staff, what it does in our communities. Now we go and we teach other school owners how to have that same impact in their community. So talk about becoming a consultant. Was it weird for you becoming a consultant?
It was, because I was so young. I think when I became a consultant, I was 28, and it was weird. It was really weird. And again, Master Silva is just so good. He's so good. He basically said, you're going to teach me, meaning you're out there teaching my systems. You're teaching my information. You're just my mouthpiece. I'm behind you. And that's all I need to hear. It'd be like fighting with Billy Blanks' hands and feet. You know what I mean? That's all I needed to hear. It's not me. Because I was like, what does a 28-year-old guy have to do with teaching these 40-year-old men and women how to run successful business? I mean, I ran a successful business, and when he saw that and just said, you're teaching me, you're teaching my information, you're just my mouthpiece, then I went out there with a ton of confidence. And that was the biggest difference in the world. And then I gained even more experience working with so many different owners, so many different systems, so many different styles. I started to pinpoint. I mean, I'm back in it now. I'm coaching again. I started to realize, with some people, they just need the information. And with other people, they need to work through some things, as we all did. They need to work through some fears, uncertainties, some doubts, some whatever. It just gave me a ton of experience of working with different owners and listening and pinpointing, okay, this is what they need. I'm in a hotel room now because I'm here doing a seminar with some school owners. And it's fun. It's fun to, I kind of look at my life as like the funnel. I had a lot of stuff come into me, and I've kind of just honed it all down. And now it's a chance to give, because my mind is, when I help this school owner this weekend, I'm helping however many students he has, 600 something students. I'm helping those students, and I'm helping that community. So it's fun. It's fun at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to go back, when you were asked to be a consultant, I mean, that's a lot of faith, to put into someone, and look at when we ask our, new 14-year-old to come out on the mat and to be an assistant instructor, to give our that assistant instructor a chance to now lead a class. The fact that someone believes in you and says, I got your back. I believe in you. You can do it. I mean, you have the tools and you have the support. Now go out and do it.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that some school owners are literally afraid of, right? Because maybe they can't do it as good as me. I know that for a long time, I wouldn't let anybody teach, because there's no way that they could teach as good as me. There's no way they could do it, right? But now I realize some of my instructors have become way better than I was, because I was able to provide them the experience to teach, like you said, be a mouthpiece for the systems and the curriculum and the tools that I gave them to teach. But then they start adding their own, their own character to it, their own personality to it. They start learning their own lessons. And like you said at the end, you start learning how people teach, or I'm sorry, how people learn. And then you learn how to be a better teacher based on how they learn, rather than just, okay, I'm going to spout out the 5 steps to this or that. Not everybody's going to grab that first time. So it's kind of learning how to, feed that information to someone so that they can receive it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you know what? I think that there's another part to that, which is it's more fun when you do it with somebody else. So if you're that instructor and you're afraid, what's going to happen is in the beginning, you're going to be feeding this person and teaching them and growing. But then there's going to be a point in time where they actually start making a contribution themselves. And that's actually when it becomes fun. When you're trying to maybe toss around an idea and you go, what do you think? And then they have a different way of looking at it. Pretty soon they develop their own creativity, and now they're contributing, which makes running the school more fun because you have more people helping you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, my teenagers, my 14-year-old assistant instructors come up with some of the greatest ideas that like never even entered my brain. Never, just did. And because they're so, they're kind of in it a little bit more. They're more in tune with the age group. I mean,
that's right.
At 49 now, it's kind of hard to admit, but I'm not like the cool guy anymore, right? Like, when you're the young instructor, you're like the cool guy. Like now I'm just grandpa to everybody in my school, it feels like, right? And so, it's important to include, other people and give them that opportunity, because if I do things the way that I've been doing and I continue doing them the same way, I'm going to continue to get the same result. Yeah. So, we have to bring in new, fresh ideas. We have to allow other people. Plus, it allows them to have more buy-in to being part of the team, to have more buy-in to what they're doing in the school when they actually have the opportunity to make a decision or to contribute. They're truly part of the team by doing that, rather than me barking out orders. Okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, and you do this. Right. And then we go, right? Yeah, exactly. That's to me, the authority versus influence discussion, right? I'm just going to tell you what to do and you do it. I don't want you to think, I just want you to do it. Right. Rather than saying, hey, what do you think? We've been doing it like this for a little while. What do you think? Is this really working for you? Is it really working in the classes? Is it really working for our students? Yeah. And we have to be open to that and receptive to that.
Jason, I think what you just said is really important. Any school owner listening to this probably want to rewind that and listen to that again, because for a school owner, that's really scary. How do you take somebody who you clearly know what you're doing? You wouldn't be successful if you didn't, but eventually get to the point where you say, hey, this is how we've always done it, but what do you think? When you've convinced yourself that you're the person that knows best, that's a scary thing for a school owner to give up. But what you said earlier is the reason why you want to give it up, the buy-in. Because all you'll be doing at that point is being a dictator, and you will go through staff. Because nobody, in the beginning, tell me what to do because I don't know anything. But after a while, one of the needs of a staff is they actually want to make a contribution. They want to have a voice. They want to be heard. So if you're constantly dictating, they're out. They're going to leave. That's what you just said. Really good.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I love these conversations. I mean, we're literally just talking shop, talking about what we love. This is our passion. This is our life's work here. I started martial arts in 1985. Opened my school in 1994 is when I started the first little program that led to the school, and I love it just as much now as I did then. Maybe even a little bit more because I've learned so much and I've grown so much, and you know, I'm so grateful for every opportunity that has come along the way, for being an instructor, being a student, to being an instructor, to, being an owner, to being a consultant, and everybody that I've met along the way. I mean, this podcast, right? Like, I wouldn't be sitting here on a podcast talking with you if it wasn't for martial arts. And it's opened up the doors to so many other things in my life. And so I think, again, going back, like networking, the people that we surround ourselves with, you've been introduced to so many people through the sport karate world, then the coaching world, then you talk about personal development, and that just really changes how you view things. Right.
Right. Absolutely. You're a speaker, right? You're speaking for Maya. Is that it?
I have in the past, not currently, but
yeah.
Yes.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because I appreciate the companies doing stuff like that, because that, like you just said, that's the avenue that we get to meet other people. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, with COVID, that kind of all stopped.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat to see that thing kind of kicking up again, because it is nice. It is nice to, if I see you at a convention, we're going to talk and we're going to rap and how's things going. And before you know it leads to something else. And I always walk away with something. So again, you're absolutely right. That networking.
And within our community, you go back and talk about, reaching our community, excuse me, reaching our community and trying to give back and participate. Right. I mean, I live in a pretty small town, where it's 35,000 people. And, the martial arts school has given me the opportunity now to interact with our city council, our mayor, our school board. And, I mean, when it comes to our business, that's super important, right? Because it's not always what it's who you know. And that leads us in a different direction, and for me, it's allowed me to do business in other avenues, right? We have a couple other different businesses that we have, as well as our martial arts, but, getting out there and meeting those people and getting involved and being able to make a bigger difference. I mean, we're part of our Rotary Club and our Chamber of Commerce. And I think that give back part is super important, because once we've gotten to a certain level of, call it success, or businesses doing well, like, what are you doing with it? Right. Again, are you holding it all here for yourself, or are you going out and sharing that within the community much deeper and much further than teaching how to punch and kick and block, or even just the character education? What are you doing in your community to make a difference? Tell me about some of the things that, you've had experience with in your community that you've been able to give back.
I think if I just can make a quick comment on that, what you just said, it just reminds me again what Zig Ziglar says, right? First is survival, right? You open your school and you just, God, please let me pay the bills. Please let me be here next month. Yep. So there's survival, then there's success. And now, now it'd be kind of nice if I had a nice house and some nice cars, there's success. But then I think when you get to our age and you've been doing this as long as you've been doing this, you start looking beyond all that. And then you want significance. What can I really do to improve the quality of other people's lives? This industry has been so good to us. What can I do now to really put a mark on other people's lives? And I think you're exactly right. Just now going after that significance. So
I love it.
But I did forget your question.
No, that's okay. Listen, I was writing notes because I love those. I love it when it works out like that. You got the 3 S's, right? Survival, success, and significance. My question was, tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've done in your community that you've been able to reach out with the success of your martial arts school. So how have you been able to add some significance?
I think one of the things that we're most proud of, and I know there's some other schools in the country that do it, is we do our Thanksgiving turkey basket drive. Last year, I think we did 800 families we fed. Awesome. So this is just it's just our students all put together. Some of it's the school's monies, most of it's the students all just giving donations, and then we go get the dinners and we bring them to families, and that's pretty one of the most powerful things that we do. It's just non-martial art related. It's just letting people know that this is our community, and we want to pull together and help out any way we can. And there's other things that we do if we find needs within the community. Obviously, things with breast cancer and that kind of thing. We're always doing fund drives, fundraisers for them, trying to get involved in the school system to help with school supplies and that kind of thing. Again, going back to the EFC days, Nick Kourkounis used to always say that the martial arts school should be a center of goodwill for the community. What a great vision, right? The center of goodwill for the community. So we're here to teach self-defense. We're here to build the person from the inside out. But if there's a need in the community, yes, sign us up. We're in. We're here to support you in any way, shape, or form we can. And I really think that if people adopt these philosophies, this is the key to longevity in your business. You'll be around forever.
Yeah. Now, EFC was a little bit before my time. I was actually never a part of it. But when I first got involved with Maya, one of the very first things that we implemented that I loved so much was what you just talked about, the Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving Basket Brigade, right? It was like this whole thing. Keith Scott was the one that did the presentation on this and brought it to us in Maya. And I remember coming back with that in the very first year we did it. I cannot tell you the amount of pride that I felt when we were able to provide these baskets and eventually watch my own children be able to, because we would do a whole deal, right? It would be, we would do a kickathon, we would raise the money, we would bring all the food to the school, and we'd have the kids package it up, and then we'd put it together and then go deliver it. I mean, it was such an amazing message. And it goes back to, I love this quote here of the martial arts school should be the center of goodwill for the community. It was just such a great feeling. And the parents absolutely love that they can be involved in activities like this because, in soccer and baseball, they do fundraisers, right? But most of the time those fundraisers go towards, something maybe within the league, and that's great. Yeah. But I mean, this is something that we can now take in our martial arts school and then go out and make a difference in our community, which I think, as a school owner, what better lessons can we be offering our students?
We do the same thing for Christmas. We work through various churches and schools. We have some areas near us that are just extremely low income. So these kids are on food programs, and because they're on food programs, they literally get to the school early to have breakfast, and they stay later to have dinner. If it wasn't for the food programs, these kids would literally not eat. So we know that they're part of low income. So we're given their names and their ages. We're actually not giving their names. We're just giving we're giving their names and their ages. But anyways, we take all these kids and we put them on index cards, and we tell the students, if you'd like to buy some Christmas gifts, grab the index card. It's going to have the name and the age, right? And some of the kids request stuff and other kids just don't. And our students go to work and do a killer job, getting all this stuff. But you'd be surprised what some of these kids request. You sometimes you just I want to look back and go, are you serious? This kid's asking for mittens for Christmas.
Right. Socks.
Yeah. No, for real.
Yeah.
We're not asking for Nintendo. We're not asking for an Apple Watch. You know what I mean? We're asking for socks. We're asking for winter boots. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And it just makes you just kind of step back and go, all right, listen, I need to slap myself, because if I ever complain about anything again, someone needs a reality check, So there's always that side of it too. Getting involved to just realize just how blessed we are,
Totally. Well, yeah, I love that. I'm glad that we got to talk about this here right here at the end. And I think if anybody watches this, and if you guys have questions, I love to talk about this stuff. There's several organizations and several charities that over the years that we've gotten involved with, and our kids having gone through all the youth sports leagues and gone through the schools and done all the stuff. It's just given us these connections or these this networking with people where we're able to really dive into the community and help out. So if there's anybody, school owners out there that want to learn more about how to give back to your community, reach out to either of us, because I would love to share that with you guys and help anybody with that. But with that, Paul, we're right here at the hour. And listen, I appreciate the fact that you're getting ready to do a seminar, and you're traveling, and you still took time to do the chat with me today. So really appreciate you. And I enjoyed getting to know a whole lot more about you. And this was an amazing time and time well spent for me, for sure. And I hope that everybody watching will play this back, watch it a few times, share it with friends and family, and let us know what you think. So any closing thoughts, Paul?
Any closing thoughts? Just, the only thing that just kind of popped in my head for the schooners is, there's the old recharge your battery. You got to take care of yourself if you're going to, in fact, have something out there to take care of other people. I heard a guy one time in a seminar say this: you can't lift people up unless you're on a higher level, and that's so true. So just, take care of yourself mentally, take care of yourself physically, take care of yourself spiritually, so that you have plenty to give back to others.
I love it. Great way to end the show. So listen, again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everybody that has watched today or will watch this later. Once again, please share the video and go to YouTube and subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast. And would love to hear your thoughts, guys. Paul, have a great seminar, and we'll chat again real soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, go out and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you real soon.